Hey everybody, this is Nevin for the Patriotic Populist. Welcome to another live stream of mine. Today we're going to be talking about patriotism versus nationalism, at least as I see it. Because I think there's a lot of confusion on what the two terms mean, at least in my eyes. So I call myself, and I think Herschel, my co-host, would agree, we're nationalists. In our eyes, your flag-waving patriots, typically with your Tea Party and conservative and Republican types, Trump supporters and whatnot, the vast majority of them, my feeling and my observation, they're the type of individuals that believe that America is fundamentally a good country, that we have no problems, or the problems really aren't that severe, or the problems are not the result of our system and our current economic and political structure, but it's just the fault of the liberals and the communists and the leftists and college professors and other sort of non-corporate, non-conservative, quote-unquote, elites. Nationalists is a different thing. Patriots tend to be obsessed with the trappings and the symbols of pride in America. Patriotism, in my view, is really very much of a surface love of country. Nationalists, on the other hand, or patriotic populists, or I term it radical civic nationalists, we're proud of many of the good periods of history and good deeds of America, but we also recognize that our country has deep structural flaws that even really trace back to our Constitution, which in many ways is a wonderful document and blueprint for the construction and organization of government. But it has its very, very, very strong flaws in it. It has not been able to prevent the aggrandizement of power by private sector oligarchs, for example, who really spiritually are not for liberalism, they're not for freedom, they're for corporate dominance. In other words, dominance by the wealthy elites, i.e. plutocracy, which is fundamentally, it's not a liberal thing, if you will. So we recognize the good points in American history. We represent many of the good things about the United States, but we also recognize that this country is engaged in very bad behavior. We've also realized that this country is in desperate need for reform. Nationalists look for avenues for continuous improvement of the nation. We seek a strong nation, not aggressive towards other countries at all, but we are more for a stronger nation internally, a more unified people, higher birth rates, more of a shared but earned prosperity within the framework of a sort of managed capitalism, social programs that allow people to help themselves, like certain discounted or free college and university education at state schools and technical schools, as long as you maintain a certain high GPA, things of that nature, strong public schools, strong infrastructure, obviously for people who really cannot work, obviously, various payments to those individuals who are really unable to work because through no fault of their own, such as, various physical and mental challenges or a combination of the both. So, and also a Medicare for all system, at least a national health insurance program. So these allow for society to become much more productive, much more healthier, less stressed out, and hopefully, much more mentally healthy as well as physically healthy society. So, those are the things that we look at. That creates a stronger nation. It's been proven to some degree in this country's history, as well as in the country, as well as in other free countries, particularly in Europe and Asia, where things are really, 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 really economically are doing reasonably well, especially quality of life indicators and whatnot. That's really no big secret that I'm talking about on this program. So patriotism, it's all about rah, 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 America, America, love it or leave it, and we're the greatest country in the world, and there's nothing wrong with us, and we don't want to become like those darn liberal socialist Europeans who are just a bunch of fat elitists, and Canadians. We don't want to become like Canada. They're governed by a bunch of liberal socialists and don't tell us how to live. And we're all individuals and love freedom and all that, everything else. And no, that's what patriots seem to be about. Nationalists, we want better. We take a hard look at the problems in this country and we say, how could we be a better nation? How could we be a stronger nation, not just militarily, but also spiritually, economically, and politically? That's the difference. Nationalism is deeper than the flag-waving patriots. Many of the flag-waving patriotic conservative leaders and think tanks that love, eat, and breathe America and the good old USA, so they say, they're the first ones that also will support globalist free trade policies and the outsourcing of jobs, or at least justifying it. They're the ones that will have, like a lot of the Tea Party politicians elected in 2010, many of whom, not all, but many of whom, fought against bipartisan legislation to prevent communist Chinese dumping of goods into the American market. Or how about a lot of these flag-waving, God-fearing, patriotic, if you will, Republican senators who voted for permanent normal trade relations with Vladimir Putin's Russia, which was an Obama big business initiative initially. So as I got to really explore and research and do hard thinking on patriotic, so to speak, conservatism, I started to really think patriotism is really not cutting it in this country. It's just another tool in the box of the culture warriors on the right to distract good-intentioned Americans, Republicans, Tea Partiers, independents, from actually putting two and two together about who's causing the economic decline in this country, who is assisting Russia and China on the right. Culture war issues. I mean, Kevin Phillips talks about it in his book. I think it's Boiling Point, if I recall correctly. One of his books from the 80s or I think early 1990s, I think it was Boiling Point. And Kevin Phillips, who was a top Republican strategist in his day, he talks about and reproduces quotes of memos issued in the 1980s, about how the Republicans, they couldn't get votes based on their trickle-down economic policies, so they would deploy the culture war arguments to shave off the populist vote from the Democrats. And they unfortunately used that to great success. And one thing is for certain, all the Republicans are about, the Republican Party leadership, the think tanks, the Koch network and everything, all they're about is preserving the class interests of the billionaires and the multimillionaires. That's what it comes down to. Class warfare, class struggle is real. The question is how do we stop it? How do we renew in this country a sense of shared solidarity? And that's going to have to come through profound cultural and political changes in this country. And it may have to come on the heels of a major catastrophe in order for us to realize really what the hell is going on and what brought this country down. And that's not going to take patriotism. It's not going to take rah-rah America. It's not going to take, umpteen doses of Ludwig von Mises and Milton Friedman and other free market economists who mistakenly are identified with, quote, American patriotism, when they themselves are globalists. Just read their writings. Read Ludwig von Mises' Omnipotent Government. Read Milton Friedman. And Milton Friedman had no problem and actually was for the liberalization of trade and technology exports to the Soviet Union and then communist China, amongst other things. So when you start to see these contradictions, you start to think, just the patriotism and all these other wedge issues, culture issues, flag burning issues, they're deployed by Republican and plutocratic elites to distract us. Nationalists, we take a straight look and we say, how do we improve the country? Where are the conservatives right? Where are they wrong? Where are the liberals right? Where are the liberals wrong? We take the best policies from our own historical experiences that have worked for the majority of the people and the nation's security, as well as those from other foreign free countries. And we incorporate them into our system. And that's going to take a degree of intellectual integrity and humility by both our people and politically engaged individuals out there in both parties. So, in summary, nationalism and patriotism, yes, are two different things. Meaning, it's very shallow. It does not create the necessary conditions, the necessary structural changes that will make the United States once again a much more secure and much more powerful and prosperous nation. Nationalism is something deeper. It reaches deep into the soul. It reaches deep into the issues and addresses the structural flaws that existed from this country's beginning and has only been exacerbated starting in the 60s in some ways, but especially from the 1980s onwards. And we recognize those flaws, and with the spirit of building the nation, not just destroying the nation and destroying the many good things about this nation, we're about improving it. I'll give you an example. In February 2017, I was carted into the hospital. Turned out my right coronary artery was 100% blocked. The other coronary arteries in my heart were 20 to 40% blocked. It's pretty bad. I'm not even 50 years old. I'm 46. I was about maybe 42, 43 years old. No, I was around like early 40s. Part of it was genetics, part of it was lifestyle. I used to work out a lot in the gym in my 20s, a little bit in my teens somewhat. I was a very thin guy. By the mid to late 20s and into my early 30s, I worked out, was really buffed and everything else and blah, blah, blah. And then, I slacked off and, it was a lot of reasons and, I take ownership of it. And then I lost some weight, about 2011, 2012 and, gained it and eventually had to be put in the hospital and I had to be put on medications of which I'm on today, as well as put a stent in my heart. Well, there was a problem. I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to rest on my laurels and look at old pictures and say, well, I looked really good when I, back in my 20s and teens and early 30s. And for a few years in 2011, 2012, 2013, 14. Instead, I said to myself, hey, we have a problem. And by 2000, I lost some weight, gained it back, quite a bit of it back. And then by the time I was in the process of getting a divorce in February 2019, I then decided, you know what? We got a problem here. How do we improve it? And my mind was focused on continuous improvement. Improved diet and eating habits, vastly improved physical activity, working out, walking, belonged to Planet Fitness, and then after the pandemic, I bought gym equipment, take my medicines. It's not comfortable admitting that part of your lifestyle was not good or conducive for restoring your heart health and maintaining a good heart, but now I did. I didn't rest on my laurels and be in denial. I took action and I improved my life. And now, as a result, it's thin. I don't want to take my shirt off. This shirt that I have, which I bought last year or the year before, is bigger, is actually a little big on me. Face is thinned out. I mean, you could look me up on Google and look at an old 2018 video from the Broward County Library, which is my employer, and you'll see my face is very full, very heavy. And I lost this. All about continuous improvement. Very similar to what we as a nation needs to do. All about continuous improvement. How do we improve ourselves as a nation? The solutions are there. The policy papers are there. I know there are people that agree with the ideas of Herschel and I. Polls show that more and more people agree with patriotic populists and radical civic nationalists on a variety of issues, from Medicare for all to campaign finance and lobbying to the threat of China to free trade and outsourcing. More and more agree with us on a number of the issues that we hold near and dear to our hearts. Solutions are there. Now we have to act on it. Now we have to have a government of action to implement these policies so our nation can survive in perpetuity. This is the issues between nationalism and patriotism. Again, nationalism to me is about taking action. It's not about this patriotic pandering to limited government and constitutionalism and quote liberty and freedom, because all of that is weaponized by corporate America to chain us to this plutocracy, to private sector oligarchs. That's all it is. Nationalism is about action. It's about continuous improvement. It's about enhancement of the national interest and the public good, as borne out by the evidence of policies that work, that improves national security, improves shared but earned prosperity, and also contributes to the spiritual healing of our nation, more of a sense of solidarity. That is the difference between nationalism and patriotism. As a disclaimer, we reject racial nationalism of any type because that divides the nation. So let me make it clear, when we say nationalism, we mean a civic nationalism which unifies people from different classes, different racial groups, and different people adhering to different religions. So I want to make that distinction there. It's a very important distinction. So I just want to make this quick video about nationalism versus patriotism. Definitely encourage you to listen to this video. If you like it, feel free to like it. If you don't like it, click dislike. I thank you for viewing it anyway. Feel free to make comments and feel free to share it on social media or privately with your friends and families. And thank you so much. And have a happy Easter, and we'll be seeing you soon. Take care now.